So we are Welcome Home as a nonprofit organization, and this is one of our ways that we give back is we host these sessions to really help those of us around us, Coast being our church body, our place that we call home. We want to pour back into all of you guys and give back whatever we can. So this is just a little bit about who we are. Our mission, essentially, is to help people think better, because we believe that when you think better, you decide better, you feel better, you live better. Everything manifests from your thought life. So that's really the goal. This is our agenda for today. As always, we're going to create a safe place to process. So there, feel free to have the conversations. We're going to be as anonymous as we can, right? Trying not to use names of other people in our lives. But this is a place where hopefully we can get a little honest with the things that are going on between our ears, right? Because sometimes we don't take the time to actually think about what the thoughts are that we're processing, because it's like a computer up there. It just runs a program, right? And we're going to explore today our money beliefs, which is a big part of how we show up in the world. So our beliefs around money actually are a thing that happen in our lives. Like, it actually manifests a result. So it's important that we understand what our belief systems are and what we're operating out of, because when we're frustrated or we're excited about the things that are in our life, it's coming from that place of belief system. We're going to talk about the 9 aspects. I consider them of relational aspects. So when we talk about our relationship with money, it's not specifically the currency, but it's the thought about money. I'll talk about these different aspects that you really would want to dive a little deeper into and really take a close look at, like, what's going on in your heart when I go through the different aspects, and whether or not those are an area that you struggle with. So going a little deeper. And as always, we can only do so much in 1 hour, but we're going to give it our best shot. So sometimes we can only, get the tip of the iceberg here, but it's just enough for you guys to go, I might need to process this more outside of here. And also, I really maybe need to, for those of us that are Jesus lovers, I really need to process this with the Lord or find out what Holy Spirit would say about this. So that's really the goal, is that we give you enough to get started here. We do work. Like, this is a place where you're actually not just learning, but you're actually going to practice the stuff that I'm teaching you, and then hopefully get the results. And at the end of the day, we always like to keep some time for questions and answers, and also getting coached. So getting coached is literally like, this is my challenge, let's go. And what that means to you is that I'm not going to give you my advice. I could give you my advice, but that's not necessarily what's beneficial for you. But what is beneficial is for you to have someone standing in front of you, like a third party, who can just start to serve up to you the thoughts that you're thinking that you actually can't identify for yourself. And that's really the kind of coaching that we do. It's called causal coaching. So we're going to the root cause to do the coaching. We're not going to tell you what the best practice is. We're going to have you find it out for yourself. All right. So I don't know how many of you read the description of the event. Did anyone see the description online? No? 2, maybe? All right. So the question that I had attached to this event is, do you want to be rich? Which I just love, because I think every time I open my mouth and start talking about money, people get equally uncomfortable as they are, like, excited. Because no one really wants to talk about money, and it's almost a little taboo to talk about being rich, right? And it's, why should it be? Nothing should be off limits for us, right? So that, I thought, was kind of a fun way to get people engaged, to just say, hey, so even when I say the words, do you want to be rich? What kind of emotions come up, right? Like, it's not for me, that would be too hard, I would be greedy, like all the places, right, that we find on the inside. Let's see here, yeah. So session format, this is one of those formalities. Just for those of you that are new, we do try to keep a clock running, so I stay on schedule, because sometimes it just happens. And then that second bullet at the top under session format, we try to keep it to the 20 minutes of learning, 15 minutes of practice, and then another 20-25 of the open conversation and dialogue, because that's really where we start to learn and understand more, is when we can actually connect with one another and share. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to roll up our sleeves and start doing some work. So you guys have a couple of sheets of paper in front of you. The first one we're going to address is the thought download. And so it looks like this. Okay. Okay. And what you're going to do is you're going to start to just dump your brain. I think we need one more over here. Okay? We're going to dump our brain. So I want you to take a few minutes, and I want you to, when I say the words money, I want you to pretty much just start writing. Just start writing. Every thought that comes into your mind about money. Don't screen yourself. Don't hold back. Be as honest and transparent as you can be. I'll let you know when to stop, and even when you feel like you don't have anything more to write, just keep writing. You can say, I like the color of it. It just doesn't matter. Okay, I see that some of you are still writing. And if you're just writing because I told you to keep writing, you can stop. But if you have more to write, go ahead. This part of the process is really what I consider priming the pump. And what that means is that in order to identify what you're actually thinking, you have to get it out of your head, right? So we can't entertain new ideas, new ways of thinking, new belief systems if we don't actually know what's going on up there between our ears. So that's the first part, is just to dump everything out. And this is a process that if you guys can use this often in any of the areas of your life where maybe things aren't going as well as you'd like to see them, if they're not 100% abundant, start with a download. Just dump your brain about the topic, okay? Because then you kind of start with a clean slate. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the next handout, which is the money side 1. And now we're going to start answering some specific questions about money, how we think about money, how we feel about money. So this sheet starts out with filling in the blanks. So money is, money was, and money will be in the future. Go ahead and fill those out. What word would you add to that sentence to make it true for you? The next grouping is taking a look at your family history. So you're going to answer, my father taught me blank about money, my father taught me blank about pleasure, and my father taught me blank about myself. And then you're going to do the same thing for what your mom taught you, those 3 categories. When you're done filling in those blanks, just move on to the next question. We'll do front and back here. think we're about 50% of the way there. How are the questions? Are you finding them challenging, easy, interesting? Did you say challenging? Yeah. Yeah. Who else found them challenging? Right? Yeah. Yeah. And so many times it's a great example of how we just move through our days, we move through the years, right? And we don't ask ourselves some of these questions to really find out what we believe and whether or not we're living the way we believe. So one of the things I love so much about these questions is it typically brings up a lot of emotion. So the question, what does being rich mean to you? Just want to ask you, what would that feel like if people were talking about you and saying that you are rich? So I want you to imagine that someone's having a conversation about you and they're like, oh, that so-and-so, that Jimmy, he is rich. How would that feel if you knew someone was talking about you and they were talking about how rich you are? Come on. How would it feel?
You know what? I don't feel, in some cases, I don't feel that we are rich, but I know we are. But I don't think anybody has ever thought about us in that way.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. And if you heard them talking about how rich you are, would it be uncomfortable? Or would you just be like, yeah, that's right. That's right. Right? And so it's interesting because we have a reaction, right, to the talk of money. There's things that are acceptable about money. We don't ever hear people talking about how rich they are, but everyone talks about the diet that they're on, right? So there's things that are acceptable and things that aren't acceptable, and we've just decided that. So it's really appropriate, right, for someone to talk about how they don't have money and how they're struggling and this is going on. But we don't hear people having the same conversation about how they just had this amazing deal and they just made so much money and they worked so hard. Why? Right? As if we talk about our money and it's going to take it away from someone else. Right? That's not how it works. But there's something about that, right? Where we just don't feel the freedom to talk about money. And last time I checked, everybody in the Old Testament was filthy rich that followed Adonai, right? All of our patriarchs were filthy rich. It's biblical, okay? So there's nothing wrong with money, and actually God is a God of rewards, right? He actually loves to reward us. So money is not outside of the realm of the way that he rewards. He just loves doing that. He loves to bless us. Now, what if I started to talk about money and how rich I was? How I love it, I love making it, I love spending it. What goes on inside of each one of you? How does that make you feel that now I'm just talking about money? Yeah, yeah. Which is a challenge, right? Because when we're comparing ourselves to something that isn't the model, we're just comparing ourselves to like the knockoff, right? What we think we should be doing. And so in that place, lots of stuff happens. But the thing that I want to call your attention to is that when you find that there's an emotion coming up, like jealousy or something else, like that is an indicator of the health of your relationship with money. It's not an indicator of whether or not you should have money or whether or not, like you have enough money. It's always your relationship. So that's why it's so important to talk about money and ask yourself these questions, because when you feel those bubblings, those negative emotions, that's not the same father that you're, I think, falling under, right? That's another father. So I love doing that, is just talking about money. And like I said, when when we have these conversations, my husband and I, right over here, it's so uncomfortable for him. I'm like, we're gonna talk about money, and he's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're gonna do this again, because it's equally comfortable as really like uncomfortable. So that's your attachment to money. You can tell your attachment to money and the relationship that you have based on how you feel, because your feelings are always the indicator. So I want to talk a little bit about the things that you believe about money. So when you look at your sheet, what are some of the beliefs that you came up with? I put some samples up here that we've probably all heard as we were raised, right? We've got things like, if I have or want more, then I'll be greedy, or that's greedy, if I want more money, right? I must be careful with money. Right? Who told you that? And what does careful mean? It provides security. Is that true? Right? But we don't ask ourselves this question. Like, it's maybe like a false sense of security, because you could walk out tomorrow and have a heart attack. Your money did not save you. It did not protect you. It's difficult to make money. This is a good one. Money's hard. It's difficult to make money. If I have it, it means someone else doesn't, so the zero sum, or I'm going to feel guilty because I have more than someone else. Money is power and freedom. I must work hard to earn money. So now our work, how hard we work, a little bit of our value in there, right? Has to do with how much money. How many of you heard money doesn't grow on trees? How about it actually does? That's actually where it comes from. We're like, what? That's a total lie. You just can't just do that. Nothing's for free. There's no free lunches. How many of you know that there actually are free lunches? How many of you know that all of the school systems are giving away free lunches right now to every family, no matter your status, right? Or that you could call up a friend and say, hey, I'd love to go for coffee. I don't have any money right now. Do you mind? Like, there actually are free lunches, but we never question ourselves. Or you've got this new idea and you want to pitch it to someone. Have them take you to lunch. That sounds like a free lunch to me, right? I know it might sound a little silly, but it really, it really is the truth. So here's where we get a little messy. We mix the spirituality with money, right? I mean, you can't be spiritual and want money, right? Like, come on. Like, that would just, like, that's going up on the list of, like, almost blaspheme, right? So you shouldn't be interested in money if you love Jesus, if you follow God. How many times have you heard things like, it's not about the money, I don't care about the money, I just really want to help the people. Yeah. How do you help people? You need resources to help, right? It could be everything from a level of education to you that you bring. Well, how did you get the education? You probably had to spend money, right? You want to help someone pay their bills. How are you going to help them pay their bill if you don't have money? Right? So they're not exclusive, right? They really can go together, and it's actually what brings us to the nations, right? Bill Johnson says something like, you need money to go to the nations. It's true. There's so many times I want our families to go on a missions trip. I don't have $600 a person to go on a ministry trip this week. So I want to go to the nations, but in order to do that, I need to have money. So where's the disconnect here? God's a God of rewards. Money is my resource, my tool to do things. Why is it not a priority? And it's that last bullet, right? The confusion comes when we make money our source. Right? So that whole idea that like money is the root of all evils, which we'll get to, it's really not that money is the root of all evils. It's how we think about it. It's how our heart position towards money, right? Not actually money itself. What's coming up for you guys? Is this like kind of like breaking the box a little bit? Are you feeling like, whoa, I didn't really look at it from this perspective? Or, oh, yeah, this is about right. This is how I think about things. Yeah.
When we're doing all the writing, the dumping, and answering all the questions, I was like, all of the concepts that I have about money aren't my actual reality.
That's right.
I was like, oh. And, when we had to do the mother and the father exercise, I was like, oh, okay.
Yes. Yes. Anybody else want to share? Yeah. All right. Yeah. So here's the slide on money is the root. So just at the top there, money is not source, God is, and it's faith in God. Money was never intended to provide safety and security. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Would God be a good daddy if he recognized that money provided us safety and security, like that in our mindset that was what that meant? Would he give us more of it? Yeah. So the intention is that we don't have any idols before him, right? So our alignment then is that he's source of everything. But in our heart, we are treating money as source because we're giving it the position of security and safety. What a good father if you saw that your daughter, your son, would possibly be entrapped, right? So that's a really good distinction there to start addressing, because the opportunity to have more flow when it comes to money is going to determine your source. Okay? If he's as good of a father as we believe he is, he's not going to put you in a position where your character can't carry what he's giving you. Right? So the third one there is money will never fulfill the deep place inside. That's why it says seek first the kingdom of God and all of these things will be added. I think it actually says all of these riches, right? We're wired for prosperity. So again, this isn't a money issue. There isn't a problem with money. We're wired for this, all of the patriarchs. God wants you to be wealthy. How about this one? The greatest service you can give God and mankind is making the most of yourself. And that might also mean making the most money that you can, because when you make the most money, you can help the most people. You can do the most with it. Money is what is predominant here. It gets things done, right? It doesn't mean you're going to go spend more money on yourself. That doesn't have to be the case. So making more money can be because your heart is to give it away, to create solutions for people so that they are not without money. Like there's just so much opportunity, right? It doesn't mean you're greedy. Money is here to assist and help grow us. And this is where we probably get a little sticky in the brain, right? We don't recognize that the reason why we think money is the root of all evil is because our thinking, our thoughts, our emotions get tied to money in a way where we don't recognize it's always an opportunity to grow. So when you get that $10,000 check, what goes on in your heart and in your mind? It's your opportunity to expand, to connect with God, not just run out and spend it, right? So he's always looking for those places, and money is a great way to do it because you really get tested with money, right? So it's there to provide options and open doors, okay? And it's also to assist in your expansion and your creation. It's pretty easy to create when you have money. You're already made in his image. Think about a new business idea, right? If you're going to start a new business, you probably need some seed money. So all of these things come together for good. Money must have a purpose. I love this one because people don't really realize this, that from a spiritual perspective, so the supernatural laws, the laws that are already in place before foundations of time, right? If money doesn't have a purpose, it would be really interesting to see how much of it you get. And the reason why I say that is because money has to serve a purpose. Now think about it. When you want to create value for someone or you want to help someone, somehow that money usually comes through. Like you'll find a way, it'll work, but it had a purpose. When your purpose is to put it in the bank and just feel comfortable and secure, it's a lot harder. You got to hustle for that money, right? You got to hustle. It's an awful feeling too when you're feeling like you don't have enough money and you've just got to make sure that you have it in the bank, right? So this one I love. Money magnifies what already is and who you are today. Part of the testing. So when you get that $10,000 check, what do? When you have only $10, what do? You're going to be the same person in both situations. If you're generous with $10, you're going to be generous with $10,000. You're not going to change. If you're stingy with your $10, you're going to be stingy with your $10,000. You think you're going to be different, but the mindset hasn't changed. It's really a big deal because when we get our mindset right, like we start to flow, right? Like all of the things change. But if you don't know what's going on up there, it's hard to change. All right. It's 8 relational aspects. I had 9 before. Notice that typo. I don't know if you guys did. But these are, I'm going to quickly hit these because we're kind of at that time frame. And I'm just going to walk through how and what maybe we want to be thinking about. So these are the different areas that I would consider where you have touch points with money as it relates to your relationship with money. And so the first thing that we want to talk about is always value creation. Because again, this is where we get a little sticky. We don't realize that there's an exchange that happens, okay? There's an exchange that happens not only in the spirit, but also in the natural. It just mimics, right? So the exchange happened when Jesus died and we received salvation. Exchange happens when you create value, you get money, right? Or you get some other kind of form of resource. That's how it works. So wealth is something that you create by creating value, okay? I don't know anyone who sits on their sofa and eats bonbons and watches Netflix all day that gets paid. As far, I mean, I guess as I say that, I'm thinking government plans maybe, I don't know. But from a traditional sense, like you have to be creating value in order to receive a payment. Money is the exchange for value, the value you offer, focusing on the value you can create rather than the money. And that's also where we get a little goofy, right? We're always thinking about how much money we're going to make or how much we don't have instead of the value that we're creating. And we pull ourselves back to aligning with value. We're more aligned with our source, with God. Because when we're more after how we're going to impact someone's life instead of how much we're going to make or what's fair, we actually start to flow. We actually see more prosperity in our life because we're in alignment and we're focusing on the right things. When I think about focusing on the value, I feel like that's kingdom. When he said, seek first the kingdom, right? It's really create the value, help the person, deliver the brownies, pay for the coffee, whatever it is, right? So you're delivering value from it, whether it's a business perspective or just the one-on-one interpersonal communication. Value can be just having the conversation with someone that's having a bad day. It's your time. It's still value. It's still a resource that you're spending. Focusing on the needs is the fastest way to create value. When I coach people on entrepreneurship, I'm like, so what are you going to do? Like, what's the need? What's going to get people's attention, right? You want to fill the gap because then you create the value and then you create demand. The way that you create your wealth in the world is by creating value and then claiming your wealth from that value. Typically, we put the cart before the horse. We want to figure out how much we're going to make before we do the thing. And that actually doesn't align with our beliefs because in the Bible it says, I want you to believe so that you see. Right? Well, we want to see it first before we believe it. So the next one is your belief in creating value. So how confident are you in your belief that you can actually create value? So this is everything from what you carry, so your unique gift, to God actually created you in a way that you can generate value. Like you can literally do this thing. So we're made in his image. He's completely creative, right? Like I look around me, I look at my kids and I'm like, what? You're crazy good and you're crazy creative. But do you really believe that you can create value, right? And to what extent? Like a little bit of value or a lot of value? So that third bullet there is believe for before there's evidence. So again, I was just talking about, instead of waiting for financial success and then believing. And then do you notice that the more you give, the more you receive? Yeah. I mean, that's actually a spiritual law too, right? So when you're thinking about money, are you thinking about the value you're creating or how much you should be making or what's fair? And think about those two emotions that are attached to that. If you're thinking about what's fair and how much you're going to need and how this needs to work out, that's probably not in line with kingdom emotions. But when you're thinking about how much value you're going to create, you're going to get so excited about who you're going to help and how they're going to feel about it, and and maybe the money that does come from it, but it's not about that. It's about the blessing. It's about the giving, not the receiving. But you're going to receive. So negative emotions around money. So any of the questions, right, that we just went through today, if you notice any area where when you go back and look at it and you're noticing like, oh, that's kind of like a jealousy statement, or that's lack right there when I said I don't have enough, start looking through where are the negative emotions, because those are the thoughts that you want to start addressing. We want to shift those. We want to move those into the other camp. If you find guilt, shame, worry, or fear, they're indicators of two things: unhealthy relationship with money, and also conflicting beliefs, which is exactly what you mentioned, right? Your conscious mind is doing something and your subconscious is doing something else. And that's where you get a conflict. And that's where those negative feelings come from. So the goal is to bring the two into alignment, right? Like we kind of sometimes at the brain level. No, cerebral. Like the word. At that level, we have an understanding or a knowledge, right, of what it says, maybe even in the Bible, of that, God is a God of rewards, or he provides for all of our needs. But yet we're worried about how that thing is going to get done or how we're going to pay for that thing. You're like, there must be a disconnect there because I'm actually not living like I think that I believe. So it's all about challenging your beliefs. Emotions are fuel for all of our actions. Our emotions are the reason why we do something and the reason why we don't do something. It's always the reason. And that second bullet there, where it says anxiety and doubt can still arise even when there's evidence of success, that's for those of you that are entrepreneurs out there. Like when you're going to try something new, when you're going to do something, those emotions still want to come visit you. And when you know that this is still the thing that you need to do, you just need to push through it, because that's just that part of your brain that wants to play it safe. That wants to, it's the what they call like your reptilian brain or your cave brain or whatever. It's just the motivational triad. It just wants you to stay in the cave and be safe. We don't need to try new things and get crazy. So don't be surprised when anxiety and doubt come. Those are not the same thing as guilt
Jodi,
and fear. Mm-hmm.
I know you didn't hear all of the message today, but Joe was talking about relationships and how you manage them with them. If you go back to the previous screen real quick, that last bullet where it was, no, on the next one, sorry.
Yep, I went one.
Resolving negative emotions and,
Yeah.
and beliefs. So he was talking about when you confront somebody or you have a difficult time, resolve that negative feeling about that person first. This is the same effect, right? You have to resolve the negative feeling about your finances before you can step into something bigger,
right.
better, stronger.
Yeah. And there's a lot of ways to do that. The first thing, though, I feel like we always need to do is we have to acknowledge where the negative emotion is. Like, what's the thought in the negative emotion there that's causing it? And then we just want to move our thought process to neutral, because that's real. We can't go from I've never been able to make money or never had enough money to money is easy. Like your brain is going to be like, no, I'm sorry. That's great that you want to put that on paper. I'm not believing that. So you want to find these incremental thoughts where you go from, I've never had enough money, to it's possible I could have enough money. Just that next best thought, because you'll find that the emotion attached to it, you can actually, it's more believable. Your brain can start to practice that. And you do this all the way until you find that end result that you want, that thought and feeling combination. So separating your worthiness from money, we want to make sure that we recognize that those are two different things. You're worthy because God said so. Right? It has nothing to do with your financial status or the money that you make or earn. It's just inherent that you are worthy. I've had people say, well, I didn't, that's not my money, I didn't earn it. I'm like, oh, that's a fascinating thought. What does that mean to earn the money, like for a stay-at-home mom? When you don't get it, or you receive an inheritance. Like, maybe actually there are times when you don't have to do a particular physical activity and you still earn money. Maybe you receive the inheritance and then you take that money and you invest it and you multiply it, and that was the work, right? So there's so many different ways to earn money, but we always think, right, in our brains that it's go get a job, work really hard, and that's how you make money. It's around creating value, which isn't always the same as hustle and work really hard. And when you like what you're doing, it's so much easier to create that value, right? Like it's just exciting. It doesn't even feel like work. You hear that saying, right? I love my job so much it doesn't feel like work. Oh, this last area here, I love this. I don't know if you guys can accept it, but I like to think about money as oxygen. Not who has it and who doesn't have it, or I don't have it. It's just there. So I'm just breathing it in, I'm breathing it out. It's always there. It's just available to me anytime I want. What would that do? Would that just blow your brain up if you thought that money was just always available to you anytime you want? I don't know. Can we believe that? Right? Yeah, so it's when we try to claim it based on our worth, like did we earn it, that it creates a lot of unnecessary emotion and really drama. And that's the challenge, is the brain gets stuck with the drama. There we go. Determining your value and accepting payment. So for those of you that either might be starting a new business or you are, an independent kind of entrepreneur, these might be challenging concepts, right? Accepting payment, determining how much value you're bringing and what that's worth. That gets a little uncomfortable. So this is just an aspect of your relationship with money. So you really want to take a look at that and find out, why is it uncomfortable to ask for money, and why is it hard to value what you're giving, right? All indicators of your relationship with money. Self-worth and insecurity. So you want to work on your worthiness. So when you find that you're insecure in an area, like you got to dive in, you got to do the hard work around that, okay? Because that's just going to keep popping up in more than one location. I don't know if you've ever heard the saying that the way you do something is the way you do everything. I see it all the time in coaching, right? So in those first 3 questions that I asked you guys, which one of them was, my father taught me about pleasure, my mother taught me about pleasure. What you'll find is that the way you feel about pleasure is going to show up all throughout your life, whether you're trying to lose weight, whether you're trying to save money, whether you're in a relationship, not in a relationship. It's going to be based on the way you do things. So you've got a wiring, a programming, and it just kind of bubbles up in all of the different areas of life. So pleasure is tied mostly, lots of times, to your relationship with money and how you see life. Money as a result of value creation. So again, we're just the relationship with money as a result instead of it being the other way around. You've got to build the wealth in order to have the money, and then in order to be able to either give the money away or benefit someone else. So you're going to focus on determining how much money do you want to make, what value do you want to provide, and who do you want to offer it to. Here's your vocabulary and mind shift set. So when you're looking at the aspects and these relational aspects that you have with money, you probably want to take a look at when you did your brainstorm and you answered the questions, look for the vocabulary that you're using, right? You're going to start to notice things, everything from a more negative tense, or I had money, or I have to. You know, I like spending money, but not when I have to, right? And you'll start to notice that there's a place there where we're bordering in a very, like I would say, gray area, where like gratitude for even being able to pay your bills isn't noticed. So even the ability to say, not only do I feel really good when I go buy myself those new running shoes, but I also feel really good when I can pay my bills. That when my car breaks down, I actually have the money to fix the brakes, right? So many times we're just like, it's only if it's this way. But what I think the Lord is calling us into is let's train our minds and our emotions to be that person no matter what, whether we have $10 or $1 million, right? Let's not just be thankful sometimes and not other times. Let's be really amazing no matter the circumstance. So from a mindset, it's an opportunity to create, and you get to increase value. That's what money does for the world around you. So questions that I think that just in general we should always kind of be asking ourselves is, do you like your belief about money, and the way you're thinking about money and how you feel about money? Just like 3 general questions that you can ask yourself. And then I think the last thing here is that limiting beliefs are just core repetitive thought processes. And so it's just the patterns in your brain that you've been thinking for a series of time. That's what a belief is. A belief is something that you've been thinking for a long time in multiple ways, so different thoughts. So the problem there, right, is that it becomes this neurotransmitter pathway in our brain that's really deep, like a 2-track. Do you guys know what a 2-track is? I grew up in Michigan where there was a lot of open land and a lot of snow and got wet. And so it's when you're making a pathway, right, in the wilderness, if you will, and it goes through all of the different iterations of the seasons, and the tracks get really deep and rutted, right? And even if you have a four-wheel drive truck, it's hard to get out of those ruts sometimes. They can be pretty deep, the depth of a tire. It's the same way in your brain. If you've been thinking the same way for 15 years now, you're going to have to do some work to create a new pathway, because the way the brain works, the way that primitive part of your mind works, it wants to stay there. That we've been practicing this. I want to stay efficient. We're going to keep doing the same thing. So it's a constant retraining. It can totally happen. It's not hard, but I wouldn't say that it's easy, right? It's simple and challenging. All right. So what I want to present to you is that money, I'd love for us all to just think of money as completely neutral. All right? It's literally just neutral. And you know this is true because I could have $1 million in my bank account and you could have 25,000, and I could still be stressed out about having $1 million because it's not enough. Like it's not the dollar amount in the bank account. It's not how much you're financially worth. It's about you and who you are. The money is neutral. So another brain, like I'm saying, could think that that's amazing you have $1 million, and here I am stressing out because I don't have enough to retire, or my thoughts, whatever it is. Let's see here. It's literally a piece of paper that we all decided had value. Like that's money. It just is. It's a fact. Our thoughts determine our relationship with the money, and then the result. So we talked about this already, that money just makes you more of who you are, and the more money you get, the more you get to demonstrate who you are in the world. So I always like to talk about that with my kiddos. I'm like, the more God gets to have his expression through you, like the better, right? But how does he express himself through you except for by the ways you respond to things and the circumstances in your life? So I want to have a greater, expression of God. So I'm always working on my mindset because I know when I fix that, he gets a greater expression through me. And then your relationship with money will determine how much you have and how you treat it when you have it, and then how much you don't have and how you treat it when you don't have it. So challenge yourself. Are you the same person when you have money and you feel financial relaxation? Or are you different when you're feeling like you don't have enough? Okay, so what I'd like to introduce to you, we're just 3 minutes over. It's 1:33, and if you guys want to take this home, you can. But on the back side of your thought download is what I call a model worksheet. And there's on the left-hand side, it's your unintentional model, and then on the right side, it is your intentional model. So what I'd love for you to do is I would love for you to take that top left corner, okay? In the C line, which is circumstance, just write money. Okay, the circumstance is money. It's a fact. And then I want you to find a thought from either the download portion or the questions that you want to challenge. And I want you to write the thought in the T line.
Can you give some examples of thought?
Sure. So let's say one of the thoughts that I had when I did my thought download was that I don't have enough money. Okay, that's a thought that I want to challenge, so I would write that one down in the T line. So the circumstance is money, the thought is I don't have enough. Okay, and then I'm going to follow that model, and I'm going to, when I think the thought I don't have enough money, I'm going to identify what the feeling is that comes with that. I bet it's scarcity or fear, anxiety, right? And then when I'm feeling, let's say, anxiety, how do I act? That's the A line. I don't sleep well, let's say. I snip at my spouse. I go buy things. People do that. When they're feeling stressed about money, they actually spend money because they're so stressed. I buffer. Let's say I decide that I want to eat the pint of ice cream, right? So what actions do you take from a place of anxiety, is this example, and then what's the result? And what you will notice is that because you were feeling that way and because you took those actions, you literally just manifested the thing that you were thinking. I was thinking I didn't have enough money. I went and spent money. I ate ice cream. I did all of the things that were exactly what I was thinking. That's how it works. And then what I want you guys to do is I want you to go to maybe the left hand, bottom right hand corner. I want you to put money in the circumstance line, the C line. And then I want you to put the result, $1 million. And I want you to back into that one. What do you need to be thinking, feeling, and acting to have a result of $1 million? I know, I'm choking people up. Like, I can't get $1 million. That's nonsense, right? And so this is just a tool where you can take that unintentional thought that you found through your journaling, the questions and the download, and pull out the thoughts that you're like, oh, I need to work on those. Like, those aren't in alignment with my beliefs, or I just feel like the Lord wouldn't, like, that's just not who he is, whatever it is. And then after you play around with that, I want you to create an intentional model. So going back to my example is I don't have enough money. Maybe the intentional model that I want to create is I have enough money for the things that I need, right? And then I'm just going to identify, like, what is my feeling that's attached to that? Like, that probably feels better. And what that's telling me is that when I'm speaking those words over myself, even though they're not coming out of my mouth, the idea that I don't have enough money, I'm cursing myself. Don't get it wrong, okay? And if I just tweak that thought just a little bit to say I have enough to pay my bills, or I have enough for what I need, It is a complete reversal from the inside out. And think about it, you're going to come closer in to alignment with your source, who is God, right? And you're going to be stepping into then not only the alignment, but then you get to be in agreement with what he has for you. When you're outside of that, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Here you are thinking you don't have any money. I have so much for you. I have so much for you. But you're too busy thinking about how you don't have enough. Okay, come into alignment so I can show you what I have. But he doesn't force it on us. He doesn't force the will, right? So we need to move ourselves into alignment through our thought processes. That is always where the battle is. Yeah? All right, who has questions? Who would like to get coached? If you want to just take off, that's okay too. Was it helpful? Yeah? Good. Okay. Yay. Yeah. That's awesome. Can I answer any questions, or does anyone have a thought that they're wondering, like, how do I work this one? Yeah.
Just 1 minute. Here I come.
What are your answers to these 3 questions? Money is, money was, money will be.
Oh, I've done it a long time ago when I created it. So let me just look at it real fast. Money is a resource, for sure, or tool. Money was, what would I say to that? Money was, I would actually say that money was difficult. When growing up, I felt like I know that I grew up in a very financially responsible home, which it looked like responsibility on the outside, but really it was fear, right? My dad always did the best that he could. He was so good at saving, and what I saw is that so many times he was robbed of the blessings, the joy of money and what it could provide for him, and that I feel like the Lord would have really wanted to do. Money will be blank in the future, and I just say it'll just be energy. Like, I literally don't even give any thought to money anymore. I just, like, it's air. It's literally there for me anytime I need it, and that's just how I see it now. Yeah.
For me, I feel like money was the reason that I work hard for that goal is to have money. So money was a goal for me to work hard
Yes.
and to save money. And the money will be worthless or not that important because we have God, and everything in the world is just perish except.
Yes, that's good. Yeah. Does anybody else want to share? I thought the ones about the mother and father are always interesting, right? The pleasure one is a little bit like that whole idea that I don't know if I deserve pleasure usually bubbles up for people, whether or not or only a little bit of pleasure. Let's not get crazy, right? Like, not a $10,000 ring. Just, we could get the gumball one, like, like how we do that, how we make money. The indicator of like how much we're basically worth.
So you asked the question, are you the same person when you have money as you are when you don't have money?
Yeah.
And, to share a little bit on my end, I feel like I go through these cycles of highs and lows because when money is there and it's not there, it does affect you emotionally. And managing yourself through those emotions is really, really part of the problem. And money's always there for you. It's always available. We've gone through some experiences where there's been times where we didn't have it, and it just showed up all of a sudden, right? And maybe there was some work that had gone on in the past, or there was some other blessing that had been out there. But like getting all stressed about that circumstance and then having the result be what you wanted the result to be, right? You could have saved yourself a lot if you just aligned from a what you believe and how you live perspective. And I do struggle with that a little bit, and I think that that's probably common amongst people, but maybe I'm unique.
No, it's easy to be in that place, right? when you think the checkbook is going to a certain color now. But again, going back to, we always have options. Every thought is optional. Our ability to create value and how much value is optional, right? It's all about what you want to do. He gives us so many choices that that we're never left with the thought that's in our head. We can change it. Yep. All right, you guys. Thanks for coming. Did you have a question?
Yep.
Can you give us some suggestion about, let's say, if I have money, not rich and not poor, but I like to compare. It's not really me, but if a person like to compare to the people who richer, and then feel kind of jealous, what can that person do to get out of the jealousy and to get blessing from the Lord?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the thought would be something like they have more than I do, or am I on the right track? Yeah, okay. So that's still coming from, I always tell my clients that we typically live from like just a handful of sentences. So that sentence is probably something like, I don't have enough, right? That's really the root of it, right? So so that's what you have to address, is that I don't have as much as them, I don't have enough, and the feeling is jealousy. So what's the next best thought that you can think that's going to be just a degree more positive, right? Just similar to what I said earlier, which is, I have enough for what I need, right? Or let's say you want to address the jealousy. How do you want to feel towards them? Because you can back into the model as well. Let's say you want to be happy for them. So you're going to put down in the model, instead of starting with the thought, you're going to put in happy for the feeling. What do you have to be thinking in order to be happy for them? They deserve it. They worked really hard for that. I bet they're going to do a lot of good with that money. I don't know, the Lord has blessed their generation. Like, what could you be thinking that's going to create then the feeling of happiness? Yeah.
I'm try to think God bless them so that they have a chance in the future to know God and to be the blessing for others, to glorify Him.
Right. So that's one way that you can do it. You can be thinking, and you're training your brain. Like, it's not going to do it on its own, because its natural inclination was the jealousy, right? That was the reaction. So you're training it to think more in alignment with God, which is, I'm happy that they're being blessed, or they're going to now be able to be a blessing to others. And that's going to create a different emotion. So it's always the thought-feeling combination. Thoughts and feelings come together. There's never one without the other. You just have to find them usually. Sometimes you know the thought, you don't know the emotion or the feeling, and then sometimes you have the feeling, and you're not sure the thought. Yeah. Does that make sense? Does that, yeah. So again, you have to play with it. It's like a workout for your brain. It's working your brain. It's like going to the gym. So you have to find that next best thought that you'll actually believe, that gets you the feeling that you want to feel about it. But you get to tell your brain. So many people don't realize that you actually get to create the emotion, not the other way around. Our brains serve us up thoughts and emotions, and we just go, oh, that sucks. Instead of like, oh, no, actually, no, we're actually going to feel joy about this, or we're going to feel peace, or we're going to feel contentment, right? Instead of frustration or instead of anxiety. We have that much power, you guys. Go ahead.
So I have like a budget, finance budget that I always look at and update like every time I get paid. And I noticed that like recently I feel limited of like, oh, I can't do these things because this is what my budget sheet tells me. Like, I can't go do these things for this month. So, but now like hearing this system of like training my brain to do these things, it's like knowing God loves me so much, He does want to bless me. And that there's the sheet that I'm looking at it's not going to be like that forever. In abundance. So like, you know what I mean? Like I'm like limited just by looking at this piece of paper of like, this is the only thing this is it. This is my life.
Yep. That's as good as it gets,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things there that you can do. Is one is you might look at that sheet and say, I can't do that this month. Let's plan for it next month. Like, you know what I mean? You can just play with that whole idea of like, it doesn't have to be now, but it doesn't also mean it's never, right? So then you're like, oh, okay, it's not this month. How am I going to create some more value for next month? I'm going to sell that sweater that I never wear in my closet on eBay. Like, you just never know where you're going to get the value from. But when you open yourself up to the possibility, not now, but later, or let's do it a different way than what I had thought, or it's not impossible, then you actually find solutions. When you think it's impossible, you get the result of impossible. Whatever you think, you manifest. It's so challenging. I mean, I can't even tell you. Like, when I learned about this work, I'm like, everyone needs to know that they have this authority and power. Like, it's crazy. Like, changes lives. Teaching kids, right? Like, to understand this, that what you think you actually create, they're like, what? They have such different lives. Yeah.
So I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming today, and I really feel grateful for. Somehow, when you were saying what you were saying, my mind mapped to, we got to remember to have faith in God, and we got to remember to be present
Yes.
to what He's creating now.
Yes.
Because I've been sitting on the couch. I remember sitting on the couch one day, kind of half sulking and half super afraid about money and, oh God, please, and blah blah blah, begging and all that. And then having one of my clients call and like, Jeff, did you get my email? I emailed you 2 days ago. I want you to come and do magic at this event. And there was like a ton of money waiting in my inbox, but it's like I was busy sulking and
Yeah.
worrying and being all in my negative emotions about money instead of just checking the email or just being awake
right.
for what God was, God had answered the prayer before I even had the thought to ask for help on it,
That's right. So if you think about that, you think about it in a model form, right? The thing that you were thinking is that, like, this is awful, like, I don't have enough, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And your action was inaction. If you had been thinking, like, God's going to bless me any minute now, you'd probably be in your email, you'd be
Yeah.
making a few phone calls, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it really is.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say something about creating value, because sometimes we think creating value is only for entrepreneurs, right?
That's right.
But when you were talking about that, I was like, well, on the job, you can also create value. Like, can you do any process improvements? And then can you get an award or something like that, like a monetary award? Or, if you do those things, maybe you get promoted faster, but not doing it for the promotion, right? But you're just doing it to create value. And when people see that you have value within the company, right, that's how you get promoted. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. And even the example, like going into your closet and selling a sweater. Like, you're creating a value for someone else, right? But you didn't knit that sweater, right? It's just it's a tool. It was a resource that you had in your possession that you were going to trade for something else. And you have a ton of those things in your possession. And I don't mean physical things necessarily. Everything from something that you're just really good at, or something that you've thought about and it's a problem, and so you could create a solution for it. And you think about the different entrepreneurs that are out there. They make maybe one template, and they sell it for $5, but they sell it to 1 million people. Like, you get to design how this all happens, how you create value. It doesn't have to be a $10,000 thing that you have to sell 5 times. Sell the $2 item, right? And you're going to get the same result. Just going after the value and providing solutions and blessing people is going to beget money. It's just how it works. It's reciprocity. It's a law. Yeah. We talk about this in our home too, is like, it gets a little challenging because Scott, he's in sales, and so everything is based on what you sell, like the comp plan, right? And so it's a real challenge in that space of sales, to constantly redirect your brain to not get sidetracked by what the other sales team members are doing and how much they're selling, right? So the competition is huge in the sales field, but then also to continually keep your eyes on the goal, which is to create value. Because when you go into that customer's office and you're like, what are your business challenges? How can I help you? Not how much money am I going to make? That's the key, right? When we're trying to create value from scarcity, it flatline. Like it literally never works, right? Because we are not in alignment with our source. When we are going to move out of a place of abundance, we actually see all of the things lining up for us. So when Scott steps out and he's like, you know what? I know that this is going to take more time to do it this way, but it's the best thing for the customer. It pays 100-fold, right? But when he tries to shortcut the process or just get the deal done, it almost always backfires, So value is in so many, it's relational, it's tangible, it is, a belief system, it's so many things. Yeah. So challenge yourself, you guys, this week on the beliefs that you have about money. Every time you go to spend your money, how are you feeling about it? Where are you at? What's your heart? And then just really, is it just like oxygen? Is it real? Is it possible that it could just be available anytime I want it? And what would that look like? Put that in your thought line. It's just like oxygen. It's available to me all the time. And then what would you have to be doing if you actually thought that? Okay? I can't wait to see you all in the Millionaire Club.